In this video, I want to show you how to split a composite file like this one that has both visuals and data into two files, one that just has the data and the model, and the other that just has the visuals. So the first step to do this is to go into the File tab and save your file with a new name. And in this case, I'm going to call it AdWorks Model, and I'm just going to go ahead and save it. And now that I have a new copy of that file, I want to delete all of the visualizations. So if we had multiple pages here, you could just right click on each page and delete those visuals one page at a time. But every PBIX file requires at least one tab. And so on that last tab, you're going to have to click in the canvas and do a Control A to select all, and then just hit your delete button to get rid of everything. The only exception that I make is if I'm publishing a model file and I've created some visuals that I've used to test either measures or functionality in the data, I usually keep those with the model so that if I make subsequent changes to the model, I'll still have my testing views to do additional testing. Once I do this, I'm ready to go out to the service, and if I don't have a workspace, I'm going to create a new workspace. In this case, I already have the workspace created, and now I just need to look at the access. So I'm going to click the access button, and I want to be sure that in addition to me as added as the admin, that I have at least one viewer. So the way these permissions work, anyone that's going to access your shared data set or view the reports based on your shared data set must be a viewer in the dataset workspace. So I want to add everyone that needs to have those permissions. And I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to close. And then I'm ready to publish. So I'm going to go back to Power BI Desktop, and I'm just going to click the Publish button. And of course, it will require me to save, as it always does. And then it'll show me a list, and the name of the workspace that I want in this case is Shared Data Set Demo, and I'm going to select that and just publish. When publishing is completed, I'm going to go back to the workspace, and I'm going to have to refresh to be able to see my data set. But once I do that refresh, there's my data set, and you'll notice that next to the data set name, there's a More Options ellipsis, and I'm going to go ahead and click that, and I'm going to go down to Manage Permissions. And there I see a list of all of the users that I've added to the access list, and you'll notice that for those users that are not admins, there is another ellipsis. And this is called the Permissions Options ellipsis. Say that quickly 3 times. And you'll see there are 2 permissions. The first permission is reshare. I'm going to come back to it. The one I want to add is build. This is how I make it possible for a viewer in my access list to be able to access this data set to create additional content. Now, if this person was just someone who's going to view reports that somebody else created, they don't need any permissions at all. This is specifically for those citizen developers that are going to use my data set to create their own content. Now let's talk about reshare. The reshare permission is one that, if ever used, should be used very rarely. What happens in the background on a reshare is that the reshared user automatically gets added to the access group of this workspace, and that happens, it's basically an implicit security creation that really goes outside of any security infrastructure that you may have built for your tenant. And so in most Power BI tenants, that is something that should be forbidden. So I'm going to leave the reshare off. Now I'm ready to go back and repoint my original file back to this new shared data set. This is my original file, and it's pointed to the wrong data set because it's still pointed to that original data source. So what I want to do is I want to go to the File tab, and I want to create a brand new empty file. Once that file opens, I'm just going to click the Get Data button, and I'm going to choose that Shared Data Set connector. And it's in the Power Platform tab, so I'm going to pick Power BI Data Sets and Connect. That's going to bring up a list of all of the data sets that I have permissions to. And one of those is going to be that one that I just created, which is this one that's in the Shared Dataset Demo workspace. When I create that, I end up with a blank file, a blank canvas that's connected to that data set. Now, we did all that work in that other file. So I'm going to bring up that other visual file that's connected to the wrong data set, and I'm going to click in the canvas, and I'm going to do a Control A to select all of the visualizations, and then I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to go back to my new blank file, the untitled one, and then click in that canvas and do a Control V. And there you have it. That's all it takes to connect to the new data set. You can, if you look at the recent sources, you can see the one on top is the data connection that I'm using right now, and it's that live connection to that data set that we created a few minutes ago.